Welcome to Digitally Creative. I'm your host, Vincent Ferrari, and joining me this week is a woman who I would like to call one of the three horsewomen of the Cricutpocalypse. I have the amazing Corinne Blackstone. Hi, Corinne. How are you?
I am so good. How are you?
Good. So the reason I call her that, guys, just so you don't think I'm some kind of crazy weirdo, is when I got my Cricut all those years ago, there were three people who I followed pretty much immediately, and it was Kayla McIntosh, who hasn't been on the show yet because I haven't really pushed her hard enough to get over her podcast fears yet, but she will be on this show at some point. Amy McKeel, who you've heard multiple times on the show, and Corinne herself, because when you look up Cricut, these are the first three people that generally come up. It's kind of amazing. You've built a hell of a reputation in a very narrow space.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
You are, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of a bio and where you see yourself in the crafting and making community.
Sure. So I started crafting as a child.
Mhm.
Grew up with my mom who always crafted. So we started crafting and I kind of got out of it for a while. I got busy with life, things like that. And we got married and I made all my wedding decorations by hand, which was nuts. But after my wedding, I was bored and I was like, I've got all this time at night. Like, I want something to do. And my friend had a Cricut and I saw her post stuff she made. And the Cricut went on sale on Amazon. My husband's like, well, just buy it. You never buy yourself anything. Just buy yourself a Cricut. And I was like, fine. I buy it. I leave it in the box for like a month. And I'm like, all right, I'm taking this thing out. I'm going to see what it can do. And I fell in love with it instantly. I felt like for me, it was very like natural. Like I kind
Mhm.
of picked up on it quickly, but I noticed a lot of people didn't. And because of that, I said, well, why isn't there anybody out there like me who's just like, here's how you do it without all the fluff? Because I
Mhm.
hated watching the tutorials where they're like, oh, and this is my kid Jimmy, and he's doing this week, and my husband's doing. I'm like, no, just tell me how to make the thing. So
Mhm.
for me, that's kind of what got me started, and it was all by accident. I had no intention of becoming a YouTuber. I had no intention of making this my career. It was just a complete like fluke.
It is wild because one of the things that's very apparent about your videos, and there's a wide range of people in the way they present, especially with the Cricut, because there's a wide range of people that use it, right? There's people who are just you looking at to just cut vinyl, they want to do whatever, and then there's
Mhm.
people who want to tell you their whole life story with 5 seconds of Cricut cutting, and those are fine too. Like I don't fault anyone. Do your thing and do what you enjoy doing. What I love about your videos is that first of all, you're we were saying before we started, your output is ridiculous. You sometimes three, sometimes four videos a week, which is mind blowing to me. But the amount of detail that you go into in your videos, you don't gloss over anything. And if a video is going to be 35 minutes, it's going to be 35 minutes. If a video is going to be 12, it's going to be 12. I remember, and I can't remember what the character was. I want to say it was a giant stitch that you did, and I knew what you were doing and I understood what you were doing. And I still watched the whole thing because there were so many great little nuggets of knowledge in that video on how you put it together and how you arranged it. And the other thing that's amazing, and if anyone's used a Cricut, you do everything in design space for the most part. And honestly, I won't make you say anything bad about Cricut, but man, the fact that you can do that much in design space, I mean, you must have the patience of a saint.
I will say it is definitely an adventure, and I do try to encourage people to not design in design space. It is
Hmm.
not design software.
It's really not.
It's really not. But I do try to teach them like the basics of Inkscape because there's a lot you
Sure.
can do in that. But really, with Cricut, there is quite a bit you can do.
Hmm.
You just have to know how to do it and how to avoid a lot of those pitfalls.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of people get frustrated because of those pitfalls. And I want to show them like it's okay. It happens. Like my whole motto is crafting is for everyone and it's totally okay to make mistakes
Hmm.
because even if you make the mistake, you can either unmake that mistake and redo the project or you can make that mistake just part of the project. So
Sure.
it's fine.
Yeah, we I was just talking to my guest this past week, Kevin Mahaffey. We were talking about this, and it's funny because I feel like you and I understand this inherently as makers and people who produce content. Is that we look at our stuff a lot differently from how the end user or the person who's seeing it is going to look at it. We'll look at one tiny little imperfection because we know it's there, and
Mhm.
it's like radar, like zoom right in on that mistake, and it's all you see is the mistake. And somebody else really does have a better holistic view of the stuff that we make, and they look at the whole thing and go, "This is incredible. I love this."
Absolutely. Yeah. We are definitely our own worst critic. And I
Hmm.
think that's true for any type of a maker space, whether you are a fiber artist, whether you sew, whether you're a painter, you're always going to find that one thing that you don't love, but nobody else is going to see that. And I do try
Hmm.
to preach that in my videos. If you make a mistake, nobody else is going to notice it. If it's just slightly off center, it's fine.
It's
Nobody's
fine.
going to notice.
If the tiles don't line up, no one's gonna really notice. No one's
Exactly.
looking at your stuff that closely.
Yeah.
This is it's funny because it's my friend calls it the most direct example of main character syndrome, and I'm like, there's probably a little bit of truth to that because you walk in the room and you think everyone's looking at you and no one even noticed you walked in the room.
That is so true. That is so true.
What I love about your channel aside from, the output and the way you teach stuff though is that you really have managed to turn it into something where it's not just a side thing for you. You really do. And it shows in the amount of content you put out and the amount of time and effort you put into your videos. How did it feel to kind of like when you hit that turning point where it's like this is going from something I love doing to something that is going to probably start making me money and then something I mean right now on YouTube you have 234,000 subscribers, which is an absurd number. Not that you don't deserve it, it's just an absurd number of people. It's quarter
It
of a
is.
million people watching your stuff. How did that all feel? Like you start realizing like this is the real deal. I'm really doing something and it's gonna be a thing.
It was, on one hand, it was incredibly terrifying,
Mhm,
because I worked for a 9 to 5 job for
mhm.
pretty much my whole life, and I realized I was really unhappy in that job during, COVID, actually. I was sent to work from home, and it was fine. My job wasn't keeping me very busy, so I was able to work a lot on the YouTube stuff during the day while I was working for the other company,
I think
and
we
I just realized.
I love that you did that because I pretty much feel like everyone that had a side hustle was doing that same exact thing.
Yep. And it just, the other job wasn't fulfilling me. I was bored a lot with it. I'd been doing it for 10 years
Mhm,
and I didn't have any room to grow. I mean, they were paying me way more than they probably needed to because I'd been there for so long. And I realized by being able to focus more on my crafting, I could make way more money. I could be happier. I could be at home with my pets. I don't have kids,
mhm.
but I have a dog and she's very dependent.
Same thing.
Yeah, and it's like, so I one day sat down with my husband, I'm like, "I have to talk to you about this. I'm unhappy. What do you think? Can we do it?" And he's like, "I don't care, go for it." He's like, "If you hate your job, do it." And I told my boss and I gave him 3 months notice because I wanted them to get time to like get somebody in,
Mhm.
and I will never forget him saying, "A lot of guys from here go off and start their own business, but they come back in 6 months. So I'm sure we'll see you back." 3 years later, and guess where
Mm,
I am?
mhm.
Little successful. It's fine.
It's I think the difference is a lot of people that have side hustles are already kind of rolling with the side hustle thing and then they're like I'm going to ramp this up, but they
Mhm.
aren't always passionate about it. Whereas if your side hustle was something you were passionate about to begin with and you have the opportunity to really lean into it, it becomes much more than that, and you're motivated not just by making some money out of it, but you're motivated by a desire to keep this thing going because this thing matters to you.
That's one of the biggest things that when people ask me about advice for starting a business and things like that, I always tell them make something that you love to make because
Mhm.
not only is that going to show in your work, but it's also going to show in your marketing for it.
Sure.
And if you blow up and have to make a million of them, chances are you're going to not hate making a million of them as much as if you were to make something you didn't like making.
Mhm.
And I think you can tell in my videos, and I maybe nobody else can, but I can. I can definitely tell when there's a project that I just don't love. I make
Mhm.
it for the tutorial, but it wasn't something that
Sure.
I enjoyed. So like working with like acrylic blanks, I hate doing it. Like keychains and stuff, I'm terrible at it.
I
I
can
hate it.
tell.
Oh my god! But everybody, and it's like, and I know it, and I'm like these videos. You can tell I'm not like woohoo. I'm like getting gumdrops.
I never got the impression, and again, I don't want. I'm not going to. You never have to acknowledge it, but I'm just going to say I never got the impression that you were ever excited about the Glowforge, that you were
I
doing it, that you like it, but it's not the same as when you work with the Cricut. Like
and
it's different.
yeah, and I would agree. I love my Glowforge. I
Hmm.
do. I think just for me, I'm not I'm not as passionate about the tutorials because I don't know as much about it as I do with the Cricut.
Hmm.
I'll be honest, I haven't touched it in about 4 months,
Hmm.
except to cut like one little thing. I made this little keychain to test something.
Uh-huh.
And like, it's cute, but I was like, I think if I could just get to a bigger place with the Glowforge where I could make bigger things and more in-depth things, then
Mhm.
maybe I would be more passionate. But right now, all I can do is like flat stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, I'm getting there. I do have a Glowforge tutorial coming though that I think
Oh,
was really cute.
okay, good.
Yeah.
I but you're one of the things that comes through in your videos is when you're passionate, particularly when you're doing Disney stuff. I
Yes.
think it's so funny because I only have 2 people in my feed that I watch regularly that are, like, Disney obsessed, and it's you and Ashley. You and
Guilty.
Ashley, the 2 of you are and your love of Disney, and, like, when you're doing a Disney project, it's a different Corinne. It's like,
Yes.
"Look how cute it is. Oh my god, look how cute it is. Look how cute it is. Look how cute. I love the way this turned out, guys. Look how cute it is."
I'm definitely like through and through a Disney adult. My husband and
Mhm.
I have been 3 times. We're going back in 2024 for my 40th. I mean, I
Ooh.
got him into Disney. Like we watch Disney shows and Disney movies all the time, and we have Disney decorations. Our entire bedroom, all Disney.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
My girlfriend's gonna be getting in touch with you to try to figure out how to swing me in that direction
it's
because, like, "What did you do to
honestly,
your husband? I need to do it to him."
I didn't do anything. He said, I wanted to go to Disney really bad. He goes, well,
Mhm.
I'll go because you want to go. And it's fine. It's Florida in January, so it's going to be warmer. The first day we were there, he was like, okay, this is kind of nice. And then we went into the parks and we
Mhm.
went to Epcot and he saw just the magic that is there. And I don't care
Mhm.
who you are, Disney does have a magic. And when you're there,
Sure.
you forget that you're an adult. You can be a kid, you can get excited to meet the characters. I literally cried meeting Winnie the Pooh. There are photos of it and it's hilarious. Even though obviously those are not the characters from the screen, you still are able to really get into it. And
Mhm.
once he kind of saw that and got into it, now he loves it because he can be a kid. Nobody's judging you.
Do you look back? Because you've done a lot of Disney stuff over the years, but do you ever look back at your older stuff and go, "Wow, I am so much better now." Like,
Yes.
especially with like, I've noticed even stuff that, like, people have that I made, like, particularly since we're talking about the Cricut, it's really obvious because my stuff with the Cricut was just kinda like, whatever, it was cool. But now it's like, even customers, when they want a greeting card for like, when I make a cutting board f for a customer to send as a gift, they'll be like, "Can you make a greeting card?" I'm like, "I got you."
Got you.
I got you, you know? And it's like, wow. And they see the cards and they're like, "What, do you have a printer make those?" I was like, "No, I literally just use my Cricut. It takes me like 10 minutes to make these greeting cards and it's worth it, because I charge you 20 bucks for them, you know?"
Yep. Yeah.
Do you ever look back at your old stuff and go, "Wow, I can't believe that in this such a narrow space I've grown so much."
I definitely do. Some of those older videos, it's really hard for me not to want to like go back and like private them because they are
Wow.
some of them are so bad because I didn't know how to screen record. So like a
Mhm.
lot of those older videos are literally my camera just pointing at my computer screen. It's so
Yeah.
embarrassing. But at the same time, I do want to I don't want to private them because I want people to be able to go back and look at those videos and say, oh, well, look where she started and
Mhm.
she learned how to even get better. So I can do the same thing.
Mhm.
And I am working on somewhat remaking some of those older videos just because the technology has changed.
Sure.
Design space has changed so much.
Yeah.
Just like computers have changed even in just 5.5 years. Like there's a video that's super popular. It's actually my most popular video of how to upload an image that's multicolored. I really need to redo that one because
I
it's
remember that video, sure.
completely different. Like nothing is the same on that anymore.
I love when I watch one of your videos and it's on something I know and it's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like, you've done so much with Design Space because I'm like you, I don't do any designing in Design Space. All my designing is done in Adobe Illustrator, all of
Mhm.
it, and I just will not do any design work. But now it's gotten to the point with Design Space where it's like, this isn't as bad as it used to be. Like, I can almost see myself, like, if I need to knock something out quick and dirty, I probably could do it in Design Space and not get completely frustrated before it was over.
Yeah,
Um,
they've definitely stepped up their game, and I am definitely I'm 100% honest. Like I don't hide the fact that I don't like Design Space. I
mhm,
don't hide the fact that I don't like Cricut Vinyl or Cricut Iron On. I
mhm,
only like their machines. However, I will give them credit. They are making leaps and bounds lately between
Yeah.
adding the larger print and cut size, which currently, as of like the recording of this, isn't working correctly, the larger print and cut.
Oh,
But
God.
I expected it. I expected it to have a bug somewhere and it will get worked out. But
Mhm.
like the warp tool, that thing's so
It's
cool.
really cool.
I wish that they would add an addition to it to be able to warp images or shapes, because in Silhouette Studio, you can warp a shape so that you can make a full tumbler wrap. Can't do that yet in Design Space, but I'm hoping that the text will lead to further things.
So surely you remember, because there's no way you wouldn't remember. You remember a couple of years ago the great Cricut access scandal of 2019, and everybody was
Yes.
losing their mind over this. And I was one of the people that lost their mind. I'm like, I am not going to support a company that does this. So the first thing I did was I went out and got a Silhouette Cameo 4, and I got it on a Thursday. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I played with it. Sunday night, it went back in the box, got taped up, and was on its way back. And somebody asked me, like, well, what didn't you like about it? And all I could say is, if Silhouette's software could run with Cricut's hardware, this would be the match made in heaven. Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's the one thing that the Silhouette had better was the software, and the hardware is just night and day better. The Cricut hardware is just, it's like the Apple, and people hate when I make this comparison, but it really is true. It just works. It's like the Apple of cutting.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I've seen all these new machines coming out. A lot of companies are coming out with machines. Caesar's coming out with a machine. StarCraft came out with a machine. Not to mention all the professional grade machines. They all kind of work the same way, where you pop the blade in and you do a tiny little test square on the vinyl just to make sure it's cutting and it's aligned. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can cut your vinyl. And you have to tell it what angle the blade is. And you have to tell it what pressure. And you have to be super specific. Now, it gives you a lot of control. But man, all I want to do is cut a Pokemon logo for my car. And it's like a 45-minute process. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the reason, like, because I have a Silhouette, I have the StarCraft Solo, I have the
Mhm,
Caesar Juliet, and obviously I have every Cricut they make.
mhm.
Um, but when people ask me which machine, and if they're not somebody who's real comfortable with setting those blade depths,
Yeah.
taking the time to really figure out all of the cut settings, I do tell them a Cricut's going to be your best bet, because you can still design in other software and
Mhm.
then pull it over to the Cricut, which
Sure.
is kind of nice. But I agree with you. I think the Silhouette software is fantastic,
It's
but
really good.
the cut settings, the machine itself doesn't feel as sturdy as the
It's
Cricut
not.
does.
It's not.
Yeah.
The doors alone on them are just, they're just flimsy plastic. They don't have that nice
Yep.
satisfying soft close with the clunk when you
Well,
close it.
both of mine are broken now. Both my makers, their doors don't close right anymore. But it's
They're perfectly
been
open.
4 years, so okay. Like I open them 14 times a day, so I'm like, it's fine.
That's the other thing though. I mean, they're relatively durable machines too. I mean, like
Yes.
mine is, I have an Explorer Air 2. I have no reason to get anything else. Like,
Yeah.
one day if it dies, I'll upgrade. But I'm not upgrading it because I want to. I actually bought, when Michaels had the Cricut Joy for $100. I was like, I didn't even have one. I'm like, $100. That's an impulse buy. I just bought one. I'm like,
Yep.
it's still in the box. I haven't touched it yet, but for $100, like, yeah, that's a good backup machine if I ever need one.
For sure. I bought it the day it came out for obviously
Mhm.
tutorials. I've maybe used it 20 times and it's all been for tutorials. I
Yeah,
just don't find the use for it.
it's a fun machine. It was a good idea. It was a good idea,
Mhm.
and in fact, I know a lot of people who their first Cricut is the Cricut Joy,
Yep.
and it was kind of a smart idea to make a cheap, small, basic machine that people can just kinda get comfortable with, and then when their needs grow, they could say, "Okay, what's my next step? Is it gonna be to the Explore, or am I gonna go bonkers and get the Maker?"
Yep.
And that's kinda what I like about them, as much as it annoys me that you need access for everything now. I do like the tiered approach to the machines. There's a lot,
Mhm.
if you don't have a huge budget, you can still get a machine that can do most of what you're going to want. You're going to be able to do your mug transfers. You're going to be able to do small shirt transfers, all that stuff. I kind of like their business model, and it does seem to
Yeah.
work well for them, even when people buy them and leave them in the box.
You know, it's fine. It's fine. But the good thing is if you needed it or like you wanted to travel with it, I find that machine to be great for especially the people like my friend is a preschool teacher. So she takes her little Joy home to cut things for the kids and she can
Mhm.
take it back to school to continue to cut things. And it's perfect because she can just put it in a little tote bag and it's
Yeah.
so much easier than the big machines. So I think they did a great job as far as like that's concerned. And I do think that for a beginner, the Joy is an awesome option, but I always tell people, I'm like, think about what you're going to be doing. Like, what do you want to make? How
Mhm.
big are you going to want to make it? Because if you're going to instantly want to start making bigger designs for bigger items, don't waste the money on the Joy. Get the Explore Air 2. But if you're somebody who knows you're going to want to start engraving and you're going to want to cut fabric, just go straight to the maker. Don't even waste your money.
Well, let's talk about something, because this is interesting that you just you were laying out the machines, right? I know a lot of people, and I know one person in particular who is probably going to be forced to listen to this at gunpoint. Um, and she got a Cricut Joy. She's had it for a while, and she's not opened it yet. So the question I have for you and for the people listening, especially her, who, like I said, is probably listening at gunpoint. If someone has a machine sitting in their closet in the box, how do you get over the fear of starting, beyond the just start using it? Because a lot of people hear that, they don't know what to do, right?
Hmm.
What would you recommend they do to get over that fear of opening the box and setting it up? And what would you maybe recommend as the first one or two projects they do, just to get comfortable with the machine?
Absolutely. So I get that question a lot, is I'm afraid of my machine. And the first thing I
Mhm.
always say is, you're not going to break it. I promise you will not break this machine. I
Mhm.
mean, you could throw it at a wall and break it, but just sitting it on your table and just trying something, you're not going to break it. I always recommend hit the Dollar Tree, hit your Dollar General, hit a thrift store and find some plates, some cups. Get an old t shirt that you have. Don't buy anything expensive to start with. And then just find a design on Design Space,
Mhm.
a flower, a heart, anything. Cut out a shape, but just start playing with it. Start learning how to really cut out just a general shape and how to apply that shape to a cup. And then how to apply that shape to something flat like a piece of wood or a plate. Starting with something really simple that's just one shape, one color. That's how I always say to start. Because even if you mess it up, you've maybe spent $1 on your blank. So you can either peel the vinyl off or just throw it away.
Sure.
So, you just kind of have to do it. You really do.
It is funny because as much as and that's why I asked it the way I did, because as much as the advice sounds trite, it's like, "Oh, just do it, just do it." Well, yeah, because honestly, I didn't know anything about the machine except I knew the other end of it. I knew what to do once you had the decal out of the machine. How do you apply it? Because my dad worked, in a company that did the displays at, like, trade shows, and one of the things they were always doing, they were using high-end vinyl machines. I learned about wet application from him before I ever saw anyone on YouTube make a video about it. So when people started making video about that, I'm like, "Oh, I know how to do that already." I never thought to do it with the Cricut, but I always knew that you could do it. But it's funny because as much as I knew, I still didn't know what I was doing. And yeah, your first thing, like, I grabbed the New York Mets logo, which is a single color, an interlocked N and Y, and I just kept cutting it until I got it right, until I got it to a size I want. And then learning how to apply it is, it's not difficult, but there is a technique to it. Everything has a
Absolutely.
technique to it. What mat to use. That confuses people too. Like, what mat do I use for what materials? I don't know. Worst case scenario is you put it in the machine and starts cutting it and pops off. Oh well. It's like,
Yeah, and that's
yeah,
happened to me. That just happened to me last week.
yeah.
I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, you're going to make mistakes even if you've
Right.
been using it for 10 years. I mean, nobody's perfect and the Cricut's not perfect and your mats aren't perfect, your materials aren't perfect. And I always tell people to rather than starting with a material that is maybe like considered a cheap material, like something really inexpensive, instead of looking for that, look for a quality material
Yes.
because you're going to get better results and get less frustrated. Because that was one thing that when I started, I was using a cheap vinyl I bought off of Amazon. It was like a
Me too.
45 pack. And the letters would always slide around on the backing. And I got so frustrated, and the transfer tape was too sticky. And then I found different vinyl and it was actually cheaper and better quality. And I was like, why was I so frustrated? This is easy.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah,
the
it's
vinyl.
weird. It's weird because in this particular space, normally I tell people, like, with 3D printing, you can kind of get the cheaper stuff and you can get by with it. I will say that when it comes to Cricut stuff and vinyl cutting, and particularly, I feel like I'm on a perpetual quest to find the perfect transfer tape,
Hmm.
because it's the one thing that you use all the time, and when it sucks, your whole project sucks. Like,
Yes.
I think Kayla recommended the Caesar. It almost has the consistency of, like, masking tape,
Hmm.
and that's the tape that I got really comfortable using, and I love that stuff. But there are times where it just doesn't pull anything up off the backing, and that's not your mistake. That's just sometimes the materials don't work together. I mean, I did glitter
Exactly.
vinyl on a project, huge project. Took hours to cut, it felt like. I was cutting 3 or 4 of them. And then I put the tape, I used the regular transfer tape on glitter vinyl. And for those of you that have not done this, you might as well just put tissue paper over it because that's how well it's going to stick.
Yep.
And it did nothing. And I
Yeah.
managed to get it off, and then it still wouldn't. And I realized I had wrecked it. And I was like, oh, and then inside, what they do with the glitter vinyl, and I didn't realize this, they put a little bit of strong grip transfer tape in the package because they know you
Yep.
don't have that. It's
Yep.
like, oh, okay. But yeah, those are mistakes. You have
Mhm.
to, it's trial by fire. It's
Oh,
trial by fire.
absolutely. And what works for one person may not be what works for you. So, like,
Sure.
I always suggest the medium tack transfer tape from 143 vinyl. That
Mhm.
is by far my most used tape. It's the tape that I've used really, I mean, I would say for probably 4.5 years,
Mhm.
and it works on almost everything. And it is really inexpensive. You can reuse it. It's just really good quality. But if you're going to use glitter vinyl, it is not going to work. There is no
No.
way. It will not stick. And that's just how it is. And some people will be like, well, it's not working. I'm like, well, what are you trying to use it on? And they're like, oh,
Right.
glitter vinyl. I'm like, I'll pray for you.
It's all, and that's what comes with experience, but you don't have to have all the knowledge the day you turn on the machine. I think that's what
Absolutely
people get
not.
scared about, 'cause like, "But there's, like, 22 different funnels." Like, yeah, look, here's the thing, go to Michael's, buy a roll of the Cricut stuff. I'm not gonna recommend you buy it regularly, but you know
No,
what? Go find a color you like and just buy a roll of that. Put it in the machine, use the default settings, and see what happens. You're probably gonna be happy with it. Your adventurousness comes over time as things start working and you're like, "Huh, maybe I'm going to check out, instead of using Cricut HTV, which is terrible, I'm going to start using Caesar, which is probably my favorite."
hmm
Like, oh, okay, this stuff is actually out there. And that's what I think people have to understand, is that yes, there's a lot of knowledge. These machines do a lot of different things. But if you're only doing one thing, you only have to learn the things that get that one thing done.
exactly. And I always tell people when you get started, pick one project, whatever
Hmm.
project it may be, perfect that project. Get it to the point where you can do it without overthinking it and just get it done one fell swoop and it's perfect. Because once you get that one project done, you'll take that knowledge from that first project and
Hmm.
be able to apply it to that next one, which maybe might be a little different. Maybe you want to do a one color decal. You learn how to apply that and you're like, you know what? I can do this perfectly now. Let's try doing a two color. And by
Hmm.
doing that, you're going to pick up different skills through each project. And that's one thing that I hope that people pick up from my videos is they learn different skills from the videos, whether it is using the slice feature, whether it is how to use an offset to create a look, or whether
Hmm.
it's how to apply vinyl. I just hope that they can pick up little tips and tricks along the way that can help them with other projects as well.
The gift box you just made, as we're recording this, it's March 20th, and you released it yesterday.
Mhm.
The hat gift box, which I think is one of the cutest things I've ever seen. I knew how to do everything in that video except one thing, and the one thing you showed changed everything. How to get the score lines on something you're cutting. Because I knew how to score something. I put a line and hit, that's a score line. But the way you did it with that, it just worked. It made sense. And I was like, that's the part I've been missing. Okay. Now I know when you get these paper craft projects, how to set them up, because what people don't realize is you get those SVG files, and those are all, if you just leave them, they're all cut lines. It's going to cut 50 little triangles instead of
Yep.
creasing on them. And I'm watching you do it and I'm like, oh, this is genius. Like, I finally understand this. This is amazing.
That's one of my favorite things is that especially with the paper projects, I feel like I pick up like things that I didn't know when I'm making them.
Hmm.
I had no idea what a bone folder was when I started crafting. I'm like, I've never used one
Heaven.
in my life. But dear God, if you have a craft room and don't have a bone folder, by all means, please get one. It will
Yes.
save you so much hassle.
God, even use a butter knife if you have to. I mean,
Right? A
but yes, a
pen.
bone folder will change your life.
Yes.
It's so weird to say stuff like that too, because I always joke with my friends, like, because I'm guy, I'm 6'1", 275 pounds, a bearded, manly man. I'm walking around Home Depot carrying lumber, whatever. Then I go into Michael's, I'm the only guy in there, and it's like, oh, do you guys have bone folders? It's like it's such a weird feeling, but it's so much fun to be like the guy in the room. It's like I love doing
Yes.
this stuff.
And it's amazing to me how many male crafters there really are, and I think
Mhm.
it's wonderful to see more and more of them are getting into the Cricut world. I
Yeah.
obviously I see a lot of them in the Glowforge and laser side of
Sure,
things,
sure.
but not nearly as many into the Cricut world because let's be honest, it was marketed towards women from the
It
beginning.
totally is. It's color of '50s appliances for a reason. It's
Uh
the
huh.
colors are like rose gold, dusty gold, mint green. Okay, granted, I have the mint green one, so I'm not gonna
Me
judge any
too.
men that have the mint green ones, but yeah, it was marketed very strongly towards
Mhm.
women,
Yeah,
100%.
but I'm seeing a lot more men into not only just tutorial field as well. I'm seeing a lot more men doing tutorials, but I'm also seeing a lot more men in the selling field of selling these projects. I'm
Sure.
seeing a lot more commenting on my videos, commenting on my TikToks, things like that, and it's really nice to see because I've always worked in male dominated industries my whole
Mhm.
life. So it's really nice to finally see some men coming into an industry that's really been very women based. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see it kind of shifting a little bit.
I love to see it. And what where I started seeing it's funny because the reason I bought my Cricut when I bought it was as an enhancement for my woodworking projects and my 3D printing projects. I think at that point, I could be wrong about the timeline, but I'm pretty sure at that point I'd seen Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. He did a giant sound wave, and all the decals on it were done on his Silhouette, I think at the time, or whichever he did it on. But he did it with vinyl, and I'm like, you know about vinyl. You know all about vinyl. Why don't you have a vinyl cutter? And in fact, when I got the Cricut, I never called it anything but a vinyl cutter, because I just didn't do anything with it. And then the first time you set it up and you turn it on, it makes the greeting card that says thank you. And it's cutting stuff and it's writing and it's like pens? like
It
what?
can do so much.
It's so much fun.
Yep.
It's like just a basket of just cool stuff you could do. So you buy it for this one purpose, like, "Oh, I'm gonna put vinyl on my woodworking projects," and then you're like, "But it really makes pretty thank you cards too."
It does. And I think that's one thing that I love about it is it's you're not just pigeonholed into one
Sure.
craft. You can really take it and do so many things with it. You can make so many things. If you just want to buy it to label your spice jars, by all means it can do that. But if you want to start making your own homemade greeting cards or you want to make your own gift boxes, your own coffee mugs, I mean there's so many things that it can
Sure.
do. So I feel like this machine has a lot of opportunity to really grow what you can make.
So with your level of output, which we've already, established is absolutely ridiculous and insane, how do you manage to keep how do you manage to keep from getting bored? Because I know that there's a lot you can do, but I also know that a lot of times, it's even a lot of the cricket channels I watch, and again, I don't judge for this because I still watch the videos, but a lot of them, it's, buy this and put vinyl on it, buy that and put vinyl on it, buy that and put vinyl on it, buy this and put vinyl on. And at some point, you're just like, I get the theme. Like, it's like,
Right? Like, oh, I
how
could
do
put vinyl
you
on that.
yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So whatever I buy, I can put vinyl on it. What are we doing next week? Oh, we're putting vinyl on that. Oh, didn't expect that.
Different.
But like, what do you do to keep it fresh? Like, what do you do to stay motivated? Because I imagine when you're in kind of a niche like you are, it's got to be hard to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. Not even for your list. Forget your viewers for a second. It's got to be hard to keep it interesting for you, like to be motivated to like, oh, I got to do this again. Like,
It can be. I
mhm,
think a lot of it definitely helps. Like there are definitely weeks where I'm just like, I don't want to even look at this thing. Like I just can't come up with anything. But I feel like because there is so much on the internet, you
mhm,
can really just into Google, type in Cricut and just scroll for days. And I
sure.
do find that that helps because you can see what other projects might be out there and a way to put your own spin on things.
Mhm.
Also, I get a lot of inspiration from just like the world around me. One of my favorite projects that I ever made was a faux stained glass, like a window hanger. I
Mhm.
still have it to this day, and I look at that thing and I love it even more every time I look at it. It makes the most beautiful little rainbows all over my house. And I just think like by just kind of looking at the environment around you can really help. Also, just scrolling Pinterest is a great way to kind of keep from being bored because maybe you'll see something you're like, you know what, I could do that, but I could do it in this way. And I
Mhm.
could teach people how to make it like this so that they're going to save vinyl or they're going to be able to do it less expensive. So I feel like, yeah, there's definitely times where I get bored and I'm just like, I just can't. But it's few and far between, thankfully. And I do find a lot of inspiration from like different blanks.
Mhm.
Sublimation has been a big help as
Oh, it's
well.
wild.
Oh
That
my
just
god,
came out of nowhere, like, all of a sudden,
obsessed.
everybody had a sublimation printer.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. I do try to put some sublimation into my tutorials. I really try to preach to people to stop using Cricut for sublimation. That for me is a big thing. I'm like, please, just for the love of God, stop. They don't listen, but I try. I really try. But
But the ink, the infusible ink is so easy and it's so convenient,
yeah,
like,
I'm
but you
like,
could do so much better with a cheap printer.
right? And I'm fine with the infusible ink. It's okay. But like when people want to actually print a sublimation print off of Design Space, I'm like, please stop. For the love of
Mhm.
God, stop. I'm like, there are so many better options.
Sure.
But I
That
think that helps too with being able to do different things like sublimation, the glow forge, things like that.
I was really enjoying. I was worried because I have a lot of experience with the Glowforge. I've had it since 2018, and there were a couple of times where I was giving you advice in your comments, and I'm like, "You're coming off," and I was thinking this to myself, like, "You're coming off like such a jerk, like just giving her advice all the time. She doesn't need your advice." But I was like, but then the other side of me is like, "But I know this stuff really, really well. Like, I know these little details. I know these little things that like." The Glowforge doesn't make right because Glowforge is a lot like the funny thing is the Glowforge is a lot like Cricut. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a black box.
Yep.
You project in, material out. That's kind or excuse me, material in, project out. It's like the Cricut, in and out. You don't really get a lot of like tinkering and tweaking with it. And
Mm-hmm.
but man, I see that to me, I've always said that that would be if my whole business blew up and my shop burnt down and I could only keep one tool, I'd probably keep the Glowforge because to me it's the one thing that I know I can employ about a million different ways to make money.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of why when Glowforge approached me
mhm,
about being an ambassador for them, I knew the Glowforge software because I have friends who have them, and I was like, I feel like yeah, for Cricut users, if you can use a Cricut, you can use a Glowforge
oh, absolutely,
because it's so
100%.
easy. It's
It's actually
so
easier in a lot of ways.
yes, it very much is. And I mean, people obviously there's a lot that you can do with it. There's a
Mhm,
lot of materials that you can cut with it. There are
sure.
off-brand materials. There's all sorts of things. And I feel like that's very similar to the Cricut in that way. And that's why when people ask me, well, do you like the Glowforge or do you like the X tool? I hate my X tool. I'm
Yeah,
honest. I don't like it. The software's terrible. It feels unsafe. The Glowforge just feels like a safer machine. It's easier to use,
mhm.
much more user friendly.
I what I love about working with the Glowforge is that no matter how long I've been working, I got it Christmas Eve of 2018. I got it. By the end of March of 2019, it was paid off. Like
Nice.
that's how much I was using the machine. Like it was a banger of a machine for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about it is I'm always learning something new. So I've been, if anyone follows me on Instagram, I'm probably sick of seeing it, but I've been playing a lot with like metal leafing, gold leaf in
Mhm.
particular. And I did this the other day.
That's so I love that. That is so fun.
And what I did to do this one differently from all the others, I put the leaf on the MDF before I cut it and then
Mhm.
cut through the leaf and the MDF. And it gave these beautiful kind of see it this way. You kind of see how the edges are super clean.
Yeah, those are
And
really nice.
it's just a machine that just you have to be willing to, "Oh, okay, that didn't work, fine." Like, you have to I hate to say it, you just have to be willing to eat the cost of some materials once in a while to try something.
Absolutely. And I feel that's true really with any craft. I mean,
Mhm.
even if you're a bead crafter, I mean, you're going to mess
Sure.
up stuff. You have to be willing to mess something up, kind of throw that money in the trash and move on.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's just crafting. I mean,
I think you're right. I think that's exactly especially when you're learning a new skill, like, I've wrecked a lot of sheets of, foil trying to attach it to not attaching it with the glue correctly. But
mhm.
you learn quick.
Yeah.
Because when something doesn't work, it's like when you stick your hand in a fire. Like, you will never stick your hand in a fire again because it hurts.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
of all the wild stuff that you've done and all the crazy skills that you've attempted and all the ways that you've pushed the Cricut to its limits, I'm curious, is there something that you're, like, excited to learn next? Like, is there another skill set that's gonna make an appearance in your YouTube channel a little at a time? Or are you trying anything new or
Not right now.
Mhm,
The last year and really the beginning of this year's been personally rough and business rough just because of the personal stuff.
mhm.
I lost my father in November, so
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
thank you. I am just now feeling like I'm getting back into it, and I
Mhm.
want people to know like it's okay to grieve. Totally
Sure.
fine. I see a lot of people who are like, I lost this person or that person or this happened in my life, and I just don't feel like crafting, and it's important to understand that that is okay.
Sure.
You're not always going to feel amazing and like you want to craft. So I feel like now I'm just starting to like feel more like I'm willing to open up to more ideas and
Mhm.
new hacks to hack the Cricut. But honestly, with them adding all of these features, I'm like, you're ruining my hacks here, people. Because obviously I have a full page print and cut hack, which is still one of my favorite things.
Mhm.
But it still works and it still gives you more print space, but it's not as much print space as it used to give you.
Yeah, and now it's gonna be really kind of outdated. Probably a couple
Hmm.
of about a month or 2, it's probably gonna be like, "Oh, no, I can just do that now."
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think event like I'd like to do some more with the Glowforge. I would like to
Mhm.
cut some more materials. I have this beautiful mirrored acrylic that I
Ooh,
think would be so pretty to cut and
that's
then put some vinyl on.
tricky.
Yeah.
Mirrored acrylic is tricky,
Uh-huh.
but I will say this, so this is where see, now this is where someone like me who's been doing it for a long time can offer you some valuable advice.
Yes.
Glowforge recently, and I mean recently, like I think it was about a year and a half ago. So recently in, the internet world anyway. They made a change to the software that made it change the way it handles internal corners and curves.
Hmm.
Because what was happening was with mirrored acrylic in particular, it would slow down so much on the curve and the laser would stay put and then move and you would melt the foil backing on the acrylic. What they did, and I think it was really cool of them to do this, is they adjusted the Glowforge so that when you tell it it's mirrored, it knows. Well, I don't even know if it's only with mirrored that it does this, but it does do it now. You can watch it. It doesn't slow, it lowers the power when it slows down.
Oh, cool.
So it's not just gonna obliterate the acrylic in the corner because I was doing stuff with mirrored acrylic. I had this beautiful rose gold acrylic from Houston Acrylic, and it was just a beautiful piece of acrylic. And I went to cut, like, kind of almost like the shape of that Hamza I showed you. Almost like that kind of intricacy, and all the internal corners were just melted and disgusting because
Oh.
the laser would sit in the corner at full
Yep.
power at the same power, and it would just fry the backing. It doesn't do that anymore.
That's good because the one I have is this gorgeous teal, and I'm dying to cut something with it. I can't wait, but I'm like, it's again, it's I'm afraid. I'm afraid
Yeah,
to do it, but I'm
yeah,
like, a big deal. I waste the $18 that I spent on this
I know.
piece of acrylic. Oh well.
Yeah, it's you're probably gonna be okay. What I usually do is if it's smaller than the whole piece,
Hmm.
I'll really do a lot of little test cuts, like, even if it's
Yeah.
just simple circles just to make sure it's cutting cleanly. Because if it's not gonna cut cleanly, you're gonna see it right away. Also, a lot of the Glowforge settings are good for other materials. Like,
Hmm.
I don't buy the medium draft board from Glowforge anymore because it's just too expensive.
Yeah, it's
I
pricey.
I get it from a guy on Etsy who sells packs of, I wanna say they're packs of 25 or 50, and they're about a third the price of what Glowforge charges. They're not masked,
Yeah.
but I've found that I'm gonna paint them anyway. I don't really care if they're masked. Like,
Yeah. I've been a
um
little bit afraid to try anything unmasked yet. I
Mhm.
haven't like I really have not done a lot with my Glowforge. I need to do more with it.
Call me.
But
Call me. I will talk you through it. I
see?
will guide you through it step by step because I gotta be honest with you. What you know on the Cricut, I probably know on the Glowforge. Like, that's how
See,
much
that's what
I've
I
used my
need.
Glowforge over the years. I've done things with it that don't make sense. Like, I've engraved aluminum, bangle bracelets with it.
Oh, cool. I just did
Yeah.
that's actually a tutorial. It's coming out with the Cricut, how to engrave on metal, and it looks really
Oh,
good.
it's cool. We had, on the podcast, oh my god, had to be 2 years ago. We had Angie Holden on, and Angie and my co-host Ethan blew her mind, and he was like, "Hey, if you have an Explorer Air, if you have the Explore Cricut, you can do engraving in metal. You just need this. It's not an
Mhm.
official piece, but and she was like, "What?" And then like 2 weeks later, she had a whole video on how to explore, how to
Yep.
engrave metal with an Explorer, and I'm like, "Well, I know where she found out about that from."
Right. I had, gosh, I've had that tool for probably 3
I
years. I
have it.
got it right before COVID, I think, actually.
Mhm.
And that thing is great. I love it. I've done a couple tutorials with that. Actually, there's another one coming out with that tool, for the Explorer. There's a tutorial on how to make a bookmark. So yeah, got all kinds of fun
It's so
things.
g see, again, this is, like, the crazy thing, like, these so, basically, and I've told people this a lot, is, like, if you have a Glowforge and a Cricut, you probably don't need a whole lot more than that to do some crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah. I want to do, and I did a tutorial using the Glowforge to like cut out the wood shape, and then
Mhm,
I applied vinyl to it. But I think I want to do one where it shows you a little bit more in depth on how you can create, like a layered SVG and make
mhm,
your own. And I hate them, but I'll do an acrylic blank where I want to make like an acrylic blank keychain that can be like custom. So, like for
sure.
a school logo or something like that, and show them how to do that because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think if you're a seller, like if you need a custom acrylic shape, you got your own custom acrylic shape, no problem.
I just posted it on Instagram yesterday. I just finished a couple of weeks ago. I finished for a local teacher at the middle school in my old neighborhood. She wanted for the pit orchestra for they did the show Newsies,
Oh, cool.
and she wanted something special for them. So she comes to me every once in a while. It's like, I need something for this group. I need this many. And I sit there and I'm like, what the hell am I going to make? Okay, Newsies. Well, okay. So I watched the ad on YouTube for the play, and I'm like, huh. And the final frame of the ad is the newspaper. And I'm like, okay, screen grab that. Okay, put that in Illustrator, tweak that up, tweak that up, tweak that up. And I went to the Glowforge and I engraved it. And then if after engraving, but before taking off the masking, I just hit it with black spray paint to fill
Yep.
in the engrave. And then right before the paint dried, pull the masking off. And you end up with this incredible color inlay on acrylic.
Hmm.
So I charge typically for stuff like that $7 to $10 a piece. If people buy multiples, if you're buying one, I'm going to charge you like 15 for it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because if I got to do that much setup for one piece, you're going to pay for it.
Heck
But
yeah.
I charge about $10 a piece for those, and I sold 8 of them to this woman. I've sold Christmas tree ornaments, which realistically, if you had a picture that you could stick in the middle of it, and it would be a perfect ornament for the average person. These machines, and I've said this about the Glowforge and the Cricut, they're a license to print money.
Hmm.
You just have to be willing to, maybe once in a while, on a Sunday, instead of just watching TV, maybe while you're watching TV, you're just sitting there reloading material and cut, 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 just keep cutting,
Yep.
keep cutting, keep cutting, and make as many blanks as you're able to in like 2 hours
Yep.
and stock up your inventory with it because the money's out there to be made. If you have a creative bone in your body, you could do so much, and you don't even need to be a creative genius. There's
Mm.
so many ways out there to get the information and just tweak it to fit your project.
Exactly. And I love seeing, especially, I see a lot around Christmas time, but really any time of the year, people love personalized stuff. And
Yes.
growing up with a weird name, I never got anything personalized. So nowadays, where they have all these things where you can just order off Etsy or find your local neighbor who's got one and you can get these personalized items, I always tell people if you can personalize it, people will buy it. I mean,
Sure.
100%. Beginning of school, pencil cases, folders, book bags, all the things.
Mhm.
Keychains to put on the book bags. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And it's like
And
just take 10 minutes out of your day, figure out something and make one, advertise it, and then bam.
it continually blows my mind how many things that you see sold in stores are available as blanks on either, on
Mhm.
Amazon, or even if you're willing to be adventurous, AliExpress,
Yep.
like where or, I guess Wish, but I don't know that I would buy anything from Wish. Although I have been seeing a lot of people buying blank stuff from Temu now.
I just
And
got a bunch of stuff from Timu.
ooh,
Look at this
ooh.
cute little lemon.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
I got that, and then I got a peep from them too.
I love that Peeps have become so iconic that there are like Peeps things now, not
Oh
just
yeah.
Peeps.
I wouldn't eat a peep if you paid me, but a cute little stuffed peep, absolutely adorable. Like a peep on a shirt,
Oh
yes.
my god.
But to eat a peep, no.
When my father was alive, it was the running joke. Like, if anyone got Peeps, you just gave them to my dad. And what my dad would do, my dad was really funny. Like, he would keep some of them sealed, but a lot of them, and this whole thing blows my mind, but he would literally take his pocket knife and he'd put a slit in the package, just a few of them, and he would let those sit so they would go stale because he liked them stale too. Or he would make his coffee or his tea, whichever he was in the mood for, and he would drop 2 Peeps in it.
Oh God.
Like
Oh.
he
Mm-mm.
loved Peeps, like
No.
loved them, particularly the chicken ones, not the bunny ones. If you gave him bunny ones, he'd be very upset with you. He only
Well, the
liked the
chicken
chicken
ones are
ones.
cuter. Let's be honest.
Like, he really loved them to the point where I once showed him way back in the day. There was a funny video where a guy put Peeps in acid
Oh.
just to see what would happen, and
Oh.
to get right to the chase, there were just 2 floating eyes. The eyes, for whatever reason, did not dissolve in acid, and I showed my father that, I'm like, "Are you sure you wanna eat these? Because even acid can't destroy the eyes on a peep."
No. It will always see. Oh
The
boy.
unseeing pool of peep goo.
Oh God, that's awful. Ugh.
But I do love when I like when the how I always like, especially because I follow a lot of crafters and artists. I love when the seasons change and you start seeing the stuff start changing. Like, it's always a little earlier than the season changing, but now I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to see the Easter stuff and I'm starting to see bunnies, and I was
Yep.
like, I don't know, I just think it's a cute time of the year because everybody that has kids is trying to make like little bunny things for their kids and stuff. It's just so cute. I love
It
that
is.
stuff.
It's fun. I love seeing the different things that people come up with and
Hmm.
the different colors they use and the different ways that they come up with these creations. And I think it's super fun. Like that little peep is going to be, he'll be a reel on Instagram. I'm going to use the Cricut hat press to press
Ah,
a name on him because I think that'll work perfectly because he's a little concave. So he's got a little belly. So I
that's a
think it'll
really good
work.
idea.
Yeah, I think it'll work. We'll find
It
out. I
should
have an
work.
extra. I have an extra one just in case it doesn't, but it should work fine.
It should work well
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff you can find on the like look at this little snail desk lamp that you can find on Temu. Like
Oh my god.
why do I need this? I don't know. He was $2. Why don't I need that?
Why don't I need it? I was just watching, is it oh my god, what is the name of the channel? Lamb and Oak? Is that their name now? She used to be with, Maker's Gonna Learn,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. Yep.
Becca Oaks, and now
Mhm.
she has her own thing with, I think it's Lamb and Oak is the name. I just
I think
found them a
so.
couple of days ago, and they just did this exhaustive video on the Cricut blades that are available, the set that's available on Temu. So you get a 30, they call it a 30-degree blade. It's a 45-degree blade. That was the other thing. They're all labeled wrong, but it's 3 different angles of blade, which is basically like the standard, the fine point, and then the deep cut blade that you would get
Mhm.
from Cricut. And the 45-degree one, which is what would be a 45-degree one, again, it was labeled wrong, seemed to work really well. Like, they cut vinyl with it, they cut cardstock with it, it cut pretty well. And then they got into the heavier stuff like the leather and the felt, and it kinda cut okay. But when you realize that you could get, 8 of the fine point blades for like $7, it's
Mhm.
like, even if none of the other blades work, that's still a lot cheaper
Yeah.
than anything you're gonna buy, and it starts to make you wonder, like, "Huh, is that gonna be the new thing that we all figure out now, that stop buying Cricut blades too?"
Oh, I
Like,
haven't bought I've never bought a Cricut blade. Never.
really? Is it because 'cause
No.
you've never dulled one, or is it because you just don't buy them from them?
It's because I refuse to give them more money and their stuff is trash. I
Yeah,
mean, honestly.
fair enough. I will say that their tools are the nicest. Their tools, I think, are worth the money. They're very expensive, but I think they're worth the money, but yeah.
See, I don't even use their tools. Everything I
Really?
use is I use pin pens for weeding. They weed a
Mhm.
lot better. Caesar tweezers, if I ever use tweezers. Their scraper is a hard plastic scraper, which is really not
Yeah, I don't use
recommended.
it. I use actually Ashley, when she was selling the ones that said chip builds on them, I bought
Hmm.
2 of them from her, and those are what I use for everything now, so.
Yeah, I use the softer ones from 143 and from Tech
Mhm.
Wrap. Those are like a much better product
I never
for
use Cricut
vinyl.
mats. All my mats are Nakapa mats.
Yeah, I think I use Cricut mats if they're ones that I've had because I'll either get
Yeah,
like I've gotten them sent to me or they're ones that I had when I bought the Cricut or they were a really good deal on Amazon.
sure.
But for the most part, I use Nakapa a lot.
Mhm.
I worked with them a bunch. their little mini press is adorable. Has 4 heat settings, so I use that more than I use my Cricut mini press. Mm.
I'm amazed. I'm amazed. You did a video, and I don't remember how far back it was because I don't remember when I got mine, so I don't remember when you did yours. I have a heat press that doesn't make any damn sense how it exists. I have the one from HTV Ront, the
Mhm.
AutoPress from them.
Yeah.
I don't understand how this machine exists because when I bought it, I backed it on Kickstarter and it was $169.
Yep.
And I don't understand how this machine exists. Like, what is the catch with this machine? Because I've used it a lot.
I don't know. I don't use mine just because I have it sits on the floor because I don't have anywhere to put it on the table. I
Mine is
don't
literally
love
on the floor, right?
it.
Oh, wait, you can
Oh, I
see
see
it.
it. Yeah.
It's right there.
I don't love it over my regular heat press, but I do
Mhm.
think if you don't have a regular heat press, it is a great option. I do
Yeah.
think it works. They definitely need to change some things about it to make it a little bit better, but like for the price, it is a good deal.
It's
Like
if you when you
it gets the
compare it
stuff done.
feature for feature, it's almost feature for feature a dead match for the Cricut one that's
It is.
$1,000.
Well, and it's honestly, I find it to be better than the Cricut one. You don't have that outside box.
Mhm.
You don't have to pull it down.
Nope.
You don't have to store it pulled up, which to me seems like a kind of a bad idea.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's
It's
heavy.
it's
It's a
very heavy,
good, but that's a
but
good thing because to me it feels sturdy.
it
I
really does.
mean,
I
yeah,
don't understand this machine. I legitimately don't understand this machine because for a
nope,
hun and even at I think regular retail was 289. Like it's
yeah,
like some insane number like that. So even if you didn't get it on Kickstarter, it's still $600 cheaper than the
hmm
Cricut one. It's like,
it is. But you got to remember, it's the Cricut name,
yeah.
so people want to pay for the Cricut name. It's like when they came out with that desk lamp. I literally
It's
was like, "What is this, and why?"
it's such an off, and that's one of the things that, when they came out with the mug press, a lot of people are like, this is kind of off brand. I'm like, not really. It kind of fits. That light makes no sense to me. Like, I get
No.
why you would want a good light. I have a good light in my
Mhm.
craft room with a magnifier. It's really reliable. It's very white, which is good because when you're trying to see what color something is, it's not going to pollute your colors. But that light was like $70.
Yep.
It's not like the Cricut one, which is, well, let's just say it's not $70.
Right.
And it's a lot. It's just a lot. Like it's really just a light.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
was very confused by that when they came out with it. I'm like, does it do anything?"
it's not even
Like,
like app controlled where you can like change
no.
color spaces. So,
Mm-mm.
you get a warmer, like more traditional, like
Yeah.
incandescent bulb versus like a fluorescent color versus
It's
daylight.
just a
No,
lamp.
just a lamp.
Yeah.
It's,
I will say I literally messaged. I have a group of friends that we're all craft friends, and they're
Mhm.
from all over the country, and I messaged that group. I'm like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, that's different." I'm like, we picked on them for the mug press, but this makes even less sense. But I actually like the mug
I
press.
love the mug press. I think the mug
Yeah.
press is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
it's a safe option too. Like I feel like that mug press because it doesn't get hot in
mhm.
places where you're really going to touch it. So I do feel like if somebody has kids and
Yeah.
stuff like that, I think that's like a really good safe option.
And for something
Mhm.
that's automatic, I've never had a failed transfer with it, and I've made a
The
lot of
only
mugs
fail
with
I
it.
had was my own fault.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the go. So when there was a rumor going around for a while that if you put glass in them, they would overheat and shut down, and then they wouldn't work anymore.
Mhm.
And I remember when Angie did her video on it, it was 48 minutes because we had her on the podcast right after she did that video. But it was
Yeah.
like 48 minutes in exhaustive detail of trying every blank under the sun. And then I mean, she has a very technical background. So her and I were chatting beforehand about the video, and I said, I think I have a theory. And if you find someone with a broken one, I'd love to get my hands on one because I think I know what the problem is. There's a temperature sensor in it, and things that are not as thermal conductive as there or more thermal conductive than ceramic will get hot faster, and
Mhm.
that temperature rise will be so high that the thermistor trips and it just shuts off. And if you could just replace that, you
Yep.
could take a dead one and make it work again. And she's like, that makes total sense. I said, yeah, if you ever come across one that's like not working because of this, let me know. 'Cause I want it. And I've been, I still would like to try to fix one because I
Yeah.
think that's all it is. It's
I would agree. Yeah, that makes the most sense.
sure. And but mine's never failed. Like, I've had it, I got it right after it came out. It has been super reliable. It's a again, it's an appliance. It's Cricut, so it's an appliance.
Yep.
Drop a cup in, put your Kapton tape on, put your transfer on, put a little parchment paper between that and the cup, which you don't even need. It's just to be clean. You just throw it in there, turn it on, and whatever minutes later, it knows it's never the same amount of time, which tells
No.
me it's doing something.
Yeah, it has no. I tested it one time to see. I'm like, because everyone's like, well, how long is it? It was different every time. I'm like,
Yeah.
how? How does it know?
And I think that's why I think it's just a thermistor in the bottom. It's just reading the temperature, how fast the thing gets to temperature, then it
Hmm.
knows what it's transferring to, and it knows how long to keep it at that temperature to
Yep.
keep to make the transfer go over. But that's the kind of engineering you don't get. And I had one of those Chinese, big ass, heavy duty presses that my
Yeah.
friend loaned me. There's no smarts built into it at all. You
Mm-mm.
tell it the temperature, it goes to that temperature. If the glass explodes, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people's fear with the regular tumbler presses. And I will
Yeah.
say, that is definitely fear I have.
Mhm.
But I try to be really careful, especially when it comes to like pressure. And I try to tell
Mhm.
people like test the pressure before you turn it
Sure.
on because you want to make sure and don't put a cold glass into the hot thing because it's going to explode.
Yeah.
You are
If
going
they
to
heat
crack
up
it.
if they heat up too fast,
Yep.
you're gonna have problems. You're gonna
Mhm.
have problems because that thermal shock is a real thing.
Yep.
What I have found the best way, and I've seen a lot of people that dip their after they do sublimation, they dip it in ice water
Mhm.
to bring it down. I'm like, "That seems risky."
It's very risky. It's
Yeah.
not something that should ever be done. Between
I
the
don't think
fact
it's a
that
good
they're
idea.
doing it with stainless steel tumblers, which that'll ruin the vacuum,
Mhm.
and then they're doing it with glass. I'm like, you are, and like I'm watching people do this barehanded, and I'm like, you're gonna if that glass breaks, which it's
You're
happened to
brave.
me where I've taken a glass that had like hot coffee in it
Yeah.
and put it into cold water and it
Yeah.
breaks.
Or you put
And
it on a I've actually seen it with my own eyes, or I wouldn't have believed it could happen. I've seen a hot mug go down on a cold granite countertop and just split in half and coffee everywhere. Like, it
yep,
just I'm like, "Whoa." Like,
we had a
and
we had a
make
glass bowl, it's a thick
yeah.
glass bowl like Pyrex.
Uh-huh.
Went to put hot soup in it. I was holding it. All of a sudden, there's soup everywhere, all over my legs, all over my hands, all over the floor, and I have half a bowl in my hand because it broke
Yeah,
from because it was cold.
it happens. And sometimes, it could just be that there's a tiny little fracture. It's not even a failure of the material. But now
Mhm.
take that to a mug that's been shipped to you, probably in bulk, because most of us buy our stuff in bulk. Now
Yep.
take that out of a hot heat press and put it in ice water to cool it down. Like, you're out of your mind. Like, that I'm
Yeah.
not doing that.
I'm not doing that. I'm not risking that.
What
I
I
value
did
my fingers.
so what I had started doing, like my first one I did, now I do them this way. I take them out of the mug press. I let them sit at room temperature for like 30 seconds, which is more than enough to take the edge off, into the fridge for like a minute or two, and then
Mhm.
into the freezer until it's completely set. And then I
Oh,
take it
see,
back
yeah.
out. And I get
I'm a
no
risk
ghosting that way.
taker. I don't ever get ghosting and I just rip it right off. I've never had anything ghost.
I wonder if I'm just being overly cautious.
And it's possible, and I know people do have ghosting problems if they do
They
that.
do. It's constant. Like,
But I
I've
think a lot of it's because they're not they hesitate, and I'm like, "You can't hesitate. You just gotta go and it's off." Like,
that's
you
true too.
cannot.
Like a band-aid.
Yep.
Also, I have noticed though, and I also have seen that people do one of two things. They either don't put enough Kapton tape on, which is problem number one, or
Mhm.
they put way too much Kapton tape. You
Yep.
don't need more than enough to keep it from moving. You don't need to seal the edges of the paper
And I
with
think a lot of
Kapton
that
tape.
started because of Cricut, because
Yeah.
if you watched the original Cricut mug press videos,
Yes.
tape, and that's what they trained their ambassadors and
Well,
their experts to do, and I'm like, even I know that's wrong.
getting back to their prices, that's because their blue tape is $8 a roll.
So expensive. It's
It's
crazy.
it's so funny how it's a recurring theme. Like, I understand, and look, there is something to be said. Like, I just made a shirt for St. Patrick's Day, and there is something to be said for just being able to run to Michael's, grab a roll of vinyl off the shelf and use it. But if I have my way, I'm never buying Cricut vinyl. Like, I'm just
Mm-mm.
not gonna buy it.
Yeah.
And even the rolls, like, I've been buying the Caesar, just the regular Caesar vinyl, and it's so much cheaper than the Cricut vinyl, and it's thicker, and it
Mhm.
goes down better, and it comes off the backing better, and it's like, I gotta tell you, when
It's
it's an option,
just better. Yeah, and I
yeah,
always tell people if you can avoid it, and I love my craft stores, I do, but if you can avoid it, don't buy vinyl from a craft store because the
yeah,
markup is very high.
yeah,
And I get it. Like obviously, sometimes you don't have a choice, and I've been in that position. But
yep,
it's like if you can avoid it, by all means, please avoid it.
yeah,
I'm all about saving money because crafting is expensive.
it is. It really is.
Hmm.
It's 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 fun, and it will drain your bank account, and if your skills don't improve, like, I'm not saying you're gonna always lose money, but if your skills aren't getting better, you might wanna consider another hobby because it's gonna be really expensive for a lot of failures.
Heck yes. Absolutely. When I started crocheting, I was terrible at it. I had to throw away a lot of things that I started. I could not crochet anything to save my life. Now I crochet all the time and it's fine, but
My friend got me this for Christmas,
oh, the woobles. Oh, that one's cute little
a
bunny.
little bunny, and
Oh.
I have not tried it yet because 'cause I'm scared to death to try to crochet anything,
It's
like,
don't be just like anything, don't be scared. You're going to mess up. It's fine.
it's
The
funny,
nice thing with that is you can just buy new yarn.
we just had this whole conversation about don't be scared to open your Cricut, and I can't open my Wooble.
I would just not want to open it because it's so darn cute. But yeah, no, I
It is
crochet all
cute.
the time now. I don't think I have anything near me that I've crocheted, but I crochet stuff constantly.
I have actually gotten into the other thing that I've always felt like is not up to par as far as my skill set is hand painting things.
Oh, I
Like,
can't
I'm
paint.
terrible at hand painting,
Yep.
and I have been forcing myself to hand paint more. Like, if it means getting better brushes, which by the way, better brushes make a difference. If it means
Mhm.
getting better paints, which again, better paints do make a difference, then do that. But paint more. And now
Yes.
every project that I've kicked out of my 3D printers and a lot of stuff that I've kicked out of my laser get painted by hand now instead of just like spray can, rattle can over the top of it. Like, I'm legitimately starting to paint stuff now because I
See,
just
and
want to
that's
get better.
nice. Cause like I cannot paint to save my life. And when I went to Vegas, I met a woman who does like watercolor paints. So I've been
Oh,
watching her tutorials and I'm like, girl, I want to be that good, but my God, no. I can't. I can't. Like she makes the most beautiful stuff. She's actually done stuff for Cricut before too. Natalie Malin.
okay.
Yeah, she does like a lot of their watercolor flowers and stuff are her designs.
Cool beans.
Yeah. But
You know,
I watch her stuff and I'm like, I can't do that.
yeah, well, I mean, you can.
It's just not going to look very good.
Exactly. Exactly. I have seen though, I will say this, in I have seen an improvement in my painting and it's encouraged me to paint more. Like, and all the things that I thought were me doing something wrong are just, you know, acrylic paint behaves a certain way. And all the stuff's like, I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking at other people painting with acrylics going, "Oh, that's what it does? Okay, cool. So it's not just me. So it's okay, just a lot of layering, a lot of patience, good brushes, and
Hmm.
not be so obsessed with putting them in water right away. The paint's not going to dry on them. Everything's fine." Everything's fine. Um, Speaking of everything being fine, let's kick over and do some things of the week because you gave me a sneak preview of your thing of the week this week, and I'm not even going to lie. It's one of those things I've seen variations of, and I know I need one. And now I'm very excited to hear what you think of the one you got. So, what's your thing of the week?
Everybody needs one if you are a crafter. And this
Oh,
is a they market it as a heat tape dispenser, but truly you can use any tape that you might want to use with this. So if you're like using scotch tape a lot, you can absolutely have a scotch tape in here. But this is a tape dispenser. And what I love about it is you can see I've got two small rolls of tape here and then
mm-hmm.
a big roll of tape. What's really cool is this actually cuts the tape into like strips. So it's very loud though. So it cuts pre-cut strips of tape.
Oh, that's genius.
But if you need a bigger strip of tape, that's what this side one is for because you can cut your own strip size on the side. So if you needed a different size, that's what that's
Oh,
for. And then it has this little, like I'll usually stick like a little pair of scissors over here,
uh
but it has
huh.
a little drawer over here that you can like put something in. And I love this thing. It is so helpful. You can do everything pretty much one-handed. So it's really great. And like I said, you can put two rolls of tape. So you've always got tons and tons of heat tape to choose from.
I
It's
love it.
fantastic, well priced, Super sturdy. I have dropped this on the floor multiple times, but I love it. Really love it.
Uh, the one thing that people don't think about when they buy like, I bought a six-pack because I use Captain Tape and electronic stuff also. That's what it's originally was designed for, was to be heat resistant while you're either working with a hot air gun or soldering, or if you're
Mhm.
putting something in an environment where it's gonna get very hot. So I bought just Kapton tape because I'm like, "Oh, that's way cheaper than Cricut's tape," as is, everything. But it has a 3.5-inch core on it, I think. Like, it's an absurdly large core. I was like,
Yep.
"What the hell do you even put this in?" And I've seen dispensers like that, but I'm like, "I'm not buying a one-trick pony for this." Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I have a bunch of different tapes where if I'm gonna take up that much space on my desk, it's gotta do more than one thing. So
Yeah,
that
and
looks
you
like
can
something.
change this part out. Like this little section, this
Mhm.
little wheel comes out, and you can actually put in larger rolls of tape. So it comes with another barrel that has a spot for these big rolls too.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yep,
That is freaking fantastic.
love
And to
this.
have one with a recommendation, because honestly, a lot of them just and that one too, I mean, that one looks like it's pretty decent. You said you've dropped it and it's still one piece. They
Hmm.
all look like plastic, and sometimes when something looks like plastic, it is.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
ugh.
it comes in a bunch of colors too. So like if you don't like purple, they had like pink and blue, and I want to say
Oh,
there's a black one. So there's like color options.
oh, the one thing you will not have to convince me of is anything purple, as you could tell from the album art of this show. All
Uh-huh.
my branding is all purple, so yeah,
Yep.
I'm the
I'm
guy
teals
that
and
likes
purples and
purple.
pinks. Yep. I had to have it in purple because the pink is the wrong pink for my colors.
The wrong pink.
My pink is like a hot pink and then like a magenta-y pink, and the pink they have is a light pink, and I was like, "That's not the right pink."
That is the most crafter thing that anyone's ever said. When their pink is the wrong pink. It's like, "Oh, it's mauve."
Listen, you have to be on brand, sir.
That's why I mean, that's why so this shirt I did this is I before Maker Camp in October, I made this shirt. My logo's on the back of it. My logo is black and yellow. That's
Yep,
it. It's just very, very simple. So it's like I don't have to worry about color matching. It's black and an approximation of this yellow, which this is pretty
yeah.
close.
Because
And
this has my logo on it
yep.
too, in hot pink, and then on the back it says "Little Miss Cricketer" with the little cricket. And yeah, it's a
It
thing.
it is absolutely a thing. You know what else is a thing? My thing of the week, and I've
Yes.
mentioned it. I mentioned it when Steve McDonald was on, but realistically, I didn't. I feel like I gave it short shrift. So my thing of the week is a product from J Diction. It's called Resin Crete, and it's hard to describe what it is, but it's very similar to Jesmonite, which we in the U.S. are very unfortunate. We cannot get Jesmonite, so you have to get it pirated on Etsy for exorbitant amounts of money. I'm not that I've done that twice. But there is Resin Crete. There's this stuff here, and I'll have the link in the show notes. But it has this crazy. You basically mix it 3 parts water to 10 parts of the base. I think that's right. It doesn't matter because you guys are gonna if you buy it, it's on the bag. But you mix this stuff up and it's very, very liquidy, and you're looking at it going, "How is that ever gonna be anything?" And in 25 minutes, you have this.
In 25 minutes?
25 minutes.
Holy
Now
cow!
it's demold in 25, cure in a day. So you can take it right out of the mold. The one thing I love about this stuff though, it's so tactile and it's got this ceramic-y, plasticky consistency. It's wild stuff. Now, you can't use it for like making like drinkware and bowls. You do have to seal it first. And I don't even know what you would use to seal it for that, but it takes paint reasonably well. It takes pigment really well, like mica powders really, really well. The pigments that are made for Jesmonite, you might have to tweak a little bit. You might have to play with them to figure out the ratios so you don't throw off the ratio of liquid to dry stuff to make the stuff. But it was wild because when I made this, I poured it in the mold and I was like, let's see how long it takes for it to start kicking and start the reaction. Within about 10 minutes of it being in the mold started to feel warm and it was already warming up.
Um,
25 minutes later, I went back into my craft room and I picked it up and it was solid. So I took it out of the mold and it just felt a little humid. The next morning, I woke up and it was completely cured. So stuff's
that's
magical.
awesome.
Yeah, if you're making, like, coasters I have a YouTube video planned where I'm gonna do a terrazzo effect with this stuff. Um, yeah, I'm very excited about it because I just have to lay out the materials and just do it. But this stuff is wild stuff, and eco-friendly compared to Jesmonite. Like, it's not made with crazy chemicals. So really cool stuff. It's like $35 a bag, but you get a lot for your money with it. It's really nice stuff, and I would highly recommend, if you have a need for it and you don't want to deal with plaster of Paris or even concrete, maybe you want to make planters or something like that, I would say have a go with it. It's really, really cool stuff. You know what else is really cool? The people that pay for this show every single week. I like to call them my Hall of Fame. And those people include Matthew Serio from Artigiano Serio, Big Al Schultz of New York Woodworks, Tori Decker of Tori Did It, Ed Swanson of Ed's Clocks and More, Jake Drews from Make with Jake, Megan Chris from Onyx Designs Woodwork, Christian Neary of Warren Works, Jeff Stein, aka A Weird Guy, Kim and Garrett from Kim and Garrett Make It, Rory Langefeld of RLL Woodworks and DIY, Robert J. Keller, Rebecca Cole of Beck C Designs, Brian Arsenault, the Seven Hills Maker, Lars Coleman of Colorado Multicraft, Dave Bauer of Dave Bauer Art, Nick Birchtold of Birchtold Design Build, Jeremy Spees, Mike from Pixels to Prototype, Donald LeBlanc of Fun with Woodworking, Grant Alexander from the Clamp Podcast, Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, and Billy Polton from Polton Projects. Thank you to everyone that supports this show financially. I tremendously appreciate it, as you know. If supporting financially is not something you're able to do, that's fine. A review, share the show, help me figure out guests to get on. Anyone you might be interested in me talking to, that's just as helpful, because anything that keeps the show going and is appreciated. Corinne, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe there was a certain amount of, I always joke about it because, there's, I don't know how well you know the maker space as opposed to the crafting space, but there's a guy in the maker space. His name is Jimmy DiResta. And there's a running joke with all of us that know Jimmy. When Jimmy DiResta follows people, there's a screenshot in their camera roll of the notification on Instagram that Jimmy DiResta started following you. And because we all did it. And the day you started following me on Instagram, I have a screen cap of that one too, because it's like, it was just so cool. Like, holy crap, Corinne Blackstone is following me. Like, that's awesome. So, but yeah, it's been awesome. It's kind of surreal talking to you. I feel like I've known you forever, even though we've never actually talked until today. But I've just been following your stuff for so long, and I appreciate it. And I've learned so much from you, and I really appreciate what you've taught me over the years and what you give to the community and your excessive output, which I hope you don't burn yourself out doing it, but I do appreciate the effort, believe me. So, but thank you for being here today. I really
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much for having me. This was really fun.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're up to and what you're doing at any particular moment?
They can find me in all the places. So I'm on Facebook, just search Corinne Blackstone. You can find me on Instagram at Corinne_Blackstone Crafts, because I can't get Corinne Blackstone. Apparently it's taken and they won't give it to me. I'm on TikTok at Corinne Blackstone 0. Also, if someone has Corinne Blackstone, rude. I know,
Don't you
right?
love it when you have an obscure name and somebody else took it?
Right. But thankfully on YouTube, I am just Corinne Blackstone. I am the only Corinne Blackstone. So if you search me, I'll be the first one that comes up.
Yes, find the one with 234,000 followers. That's the one you need to be following. It's absolutely fantastic. You're gonna hit, and unless my mental math is wrong, there's probably no reason you shouldn't be at 500,000 to 750,000 by the end of the year. Because once you hit a certain point, the growth just starts accelerating, and I'm just, it's amazing watching your growth. You've earned it, and I'm really happy for you.
I have to say 100,000 was huge. Like, that was crazy.
Yes.
You can see, I have the plaque actually right there. But yeah, that was a big day for me. I cried.
Is this starting to feel real yet?
What's funny is it still doesn't feel like this is my life. Like, when people, like, if I go somewhere and somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like always a little bit like intimidated and embarrassed to be like, "Oh, I'm on YouTube," because they probably think I'm crazy, but I'm like, that's literally my job. I'm on YouTube.
Well, they probably think, like, people associate being on YouTube with doing like vlogs and TikTok-y type stuff. They don't assume that you're producing quality educational content like you are. So
yep.
That's when you have to have a QR code on the bottom of your phone. So here, just scan this and you can see what I do right here.
Yep.
So.
I want to get one of those popples. Those little, like, they're like a little disc that goes in the back of your phone, and they can just hold their phone up and it opens.
Oh,
it's really cool.
The dot. I've been seeing those ads on Instagram, and they're very tempting.
That's where I keep seeing them too. I'm like, oh man, I want those.
They're
so
marketing
cute.
to the right people, because I'm looking at it and thinking, like, first thought was, I really want one of those. The second thought was, I have an RFID programmer.
I could make that
I
happen.
could make that. Well, thanks again for joining me. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I do have another guest lined up for next week. I'm just trying to work out the day, which means you get to have another episode of this fantastic show. I don't know whether you like that or not. I hope you do. And I will see you again next week. Have a great week, everybody.